Good day, everyone. Welcome to the video of the day. $348 trillion. This is how much debt exists on planet right now. Not billions, not trillions. $348 trillion. That's more than the three times the entire global GDP. And in 25 alone, nearly $29 trillion was added in just a single year. Here's what that number actually means and why it about to affect you directly. We'll start directly from the numbers. Let me give you the verified numbers straight from the Institute of International Finance and OECD. Total global debt, which is equal to government spendings, corporation, household combined, hit a record of $348 trillion in 25, up from $319 trillion the year before. The nearly it add to $29 trillion, and this is the largest annual increase since COVID. Government debt alone has gone to $99.2 trillion, rising to 85% of global GDP in 26, the highest since 21. Also, governments and corporations are set to borrow $29 trillion from bond market in 26 alone, double the amount 10 years ago. And here's is the number that should stop you cold. 42% of global sovereign debt matures by 27, and that's just next year. And the debt has almost borrowed when the interest rates were nearly zero. Now it has to be refinanced at today's rates. And the OECD calls this is the single biggest refinancing risk in the global financial system. Now, what would be the human cost in it? So here is it where the stops being abstract. So 75 out of 119 developing countries are in risk of debt distress right now as of March. That's nearly two-thirds of developing world. 3.3 billion people, almost half of the humanity, lives in a country that spend more on debt interest payments. 54 developing nations spend at least 10% of all government revenue just on interest. And developing countries borrowed internationally at rates 2 to 4 times higher than the US. Also, UNCATD, we can call it UNCTAD, put it bluntly that these countries may not default on the debt, but they default on the development. In 99 developing countries, 73% of total rising payments have already reduced the money available for schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. This is not a future crisis, it is happening right now. Now, the biggest factor would be the American problem. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, America. US national debt to GDP, 125% according to IMF calculations, the highest in US history outside the World War II. Also, the US interest payments on its debt is at $1.216 trillion in 26. That's a 17% of all federal spending just on interest. And the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget is explicit. With debt at 100% of GDP, the US has less fiscal space than any time in modern history to respond in the other way. What about Japan? 230% debt to GDP, France at 170, Singapore at 176%. The debt problem is not a developing world problem, it's a rich world problem wearing a developing world mask. The IMF project, global government debt could hit at 100% of GDP by 29, the highest since the World War II. We are heading for that number in peacetime that has never happened before. Now, the main part of our discussion, the financial part. What about the rising yields, which has gone to 42% of sovereign debt maturing by 27, will reset at today's higher rates? The currency risk, countries struggling with debt tend to devalue their currencies. And for Gulf investors with USD pledged assets, you are currently insulated. Gold is a hedge. Gold has risen to $5,589 earlier this year, which was not random. Central banks buying gold record piece is a direct response of losing confidence in the debt-laden financial system. And the safe havens, we can call it the short duration bonds over long duration. Quality corporate debt over sovereign debt is distressed nations. And OECD's conclusion that the debt markets have been resilient so far, but that resilience is not guaranteed. So 75 countries in debt distress and 42% of all global sovereign debt maturing by 27. This isn't a future problem, it is a present rally of global financial system. Ernest Hemingway once said that a man goes bankrupt gradually, then suddenly. The same is true for nations. Subscribe so you don't miss it in the future. Like the video. Share it with your friends, family, colleagues too. Welcome to Money Brief. Let's grow together.